Now to a new staff shakeup in the Trump administration. The president naming a temporary replacement for his outgoing chief of staff. ABC's Lana Zak is in our D.C. bureau with more on the man picked from inside the administration. Lana, good morning.
Good morning to you, Whit. In a White House often described as chaotic, General Kelly's replacement will serve as acting White House chief of staff because sources tell ABC News that's how the president wanted it. In a tweet overnight, President Trump named Mick Mulvaney his acting chief of staff, making him the third person to occupy that role in less than 2 years. Earlier in the day, former governor of New Jersey and ABC News contributor Chris Christie took himself out of the running, citing his family. Hours later, the president met with Mulvaney, his current director of management and budget, and announced that Mulvaney would replace General John Kelly. The president also tweeted, "For the record, there were many people who wanted to be the White House chief of staff. Mick M. will do a great job." In this latest West Wing shakeup, Mulvaney will have his hands full as the White House deals with ongoing investigations. Late this week, the president's former attorney, Michael Cohen, sat down for an exclusive interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos. Cohen claims that Trump knew during the campaign that it was wrong to pay to silence 2 women.
He was trying to hide what you were doing, correct?
Correct.
And he knew it was wrong?
Of course.
Cohen alleges that Trump was directly involved in negotiating the payments to Playboy model Karen McDougal, who claims she had an affair with Trump.
He directed me to make the payments. He directed me to become involved in these matters.
But President Trump previously said he did nothing wrong.
I never directed him to do anything wrong. Whatever he did on his own. He's a lawyer. A lawyer who represents a client is supposed to do the right thing.
Deputy Press Secretary Hogan Gidley doubling down on that sentiment.
Look, quite frankly, for the media to give credence to a convicted criminal who has lied on multiple occasions and self-admitted doing just that is quite frankly laughable.
Cohen, who was sentenced to 3 years in prison for crimes including campaign finance violations, tax evasion, and perjury, says he's coming clean to special counsel investigators.
There's a substantial amount of information that they possess that corroborates the fact that I am telling the truth.
The special counsel did say that you were doing your best to tell the truth about everything related to their investigation, everything related to Russia. Do you think President Trump is telling the truth about that?
No.
It's a big statement.
Also this morning, Republican Senator Orrin Hatch is expressing regret for defending the president, saying his comments were irresponsible and a poor reflection of my lengthy record of dedication to the rule of law. Going on to say, I have expressed confidence in Bob Mueller and his investigation. Just days ago, Hatch said this when asked about Trump's possible involvement in Cohen's crimes.
I don't care. All I can say is he's doing a good job as president. I don't think he was involved in crimes.
Now, Mulvaney will take on all of this without giving up his post as the head of the Office of Management and Budget. But White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders says he will, quote, spend all of his time devoted to the role as the acting chief of staff for the president.
So interesting to see those comments from Orrin Hatch, who, if memory serves, voted to convict Bill Clinton. Lana Zak, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. So much to talk about this morning. So let's bring in our ace, ABC News chief political analyst Matthew Dowd, who joins us from Texas this morning. Matthew, let's just start with Trump and his former fixer, Michael Cohen. The White House, as you saw in Lana's piece there, came out overnight and said, in essence, don't believe Michael Cohen. He's an admitted liar. Isn't there some truth to that?
There's absolutely truth to that, but it's as if one liar is calling another person a liar. I mean, Donald Trump has his own credibility issues in the course of this. But my guess is that the Southern District of New York and the special counsel, Robert Mueller, understand the problems that Michael Cohen has in his own credibility. So my guess is they have a lot of other corroborating evidence that will back up what he says and not rely solely on him. But as I say, the president, who, as we know, as the Washington Post has documented, has probably told 6,000 or so plus things that aren't true. So he's got his own issues with the truth.
All right, let's talk now about the new acting chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney. He's coming into a West Wing that has been at times, I think it's fair to say, turbulent. Is Mulvaney likely to be able to have an impact here?
Well, I find the designation of him as acting sort of very interesting because nearly every cabinet member probably considers themselves acting the way the president makes decisions on who stays and who goes. I think he's going to have to, the General Kelly tried. His main goal was to provide discipline to the White House. As we can tell looking back, wasn't very successful. Whether or not Mick Mulvaney will do that, I think the interesting thing is Mick Mulvaney is going to still keep his budget line of him in charge of the budget. And I think the budget, and now with the health care situation that we're in, is probably going to be his main source of strength in that White House. Less about disciplining the president and keeping him on a straight and narrow path, and more about what does he do about the budget and health care.
Well, you brought up health care, so let's loop back to that because it's our lead story this morning. The judge in Texas, the state where you reside, declaring that the ACA is unconstitutional. The president overnight coming out in support of that, hailing it as a victory, and also calling on Congress to come up with a new law to provide health care to millions of Americans. Do you think that is likely to happen, that the Democrats and Republicans can craft something new here?
Well, for the president and the Republicans, I hearken back to old wisdom, which is be careful what you wish for. And in this situation, politically, the Democrats are in a much better position, I think, for three reasons, if you think about it. One is Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, is more popular than it's ever been since it was passed. A majority of the country now supports that. Two, as we saw in the general election and the midterms, health care was a huge issue and advantaged Democrats by large amounts. It's actually one of their strongest issues they can in running against it. And three is this actually builds momentum for what many of the progressive Democrats want, which is Medicare for all. I think it's going to be almost impossible for the Democrats and the Republicans and the president to come together on fixing this, because where the Democrats are and where the Republicans want to be, it's going to go to the Court of Appeals. There's some question about whether or not this judge's ruling will survive. But I think for political purposes, this is a major, major problem for Republicans as they move into the 2020 presidential race. And it actually also, as I say, heightens the ability for progressive Democrats to push Medicare for all.
And just to put a fine point on this, the president is celebrating, but you're saying actually this could be a political loser for him and his party.
Yeah, it's like celebrating you score a touchdown as the first half ends, but half your players are injured in this, and you go into the second half having scored a touchdown, but your players, many of your star players are out. I think that's what it's akin to. This is a political problem for the Republicans and the president.
I was just looking to get a good analogy out of you. There's no conversation with Matt Dowd that doesn't involve a good analogy. Thank you very much, Matthew. Really appreciate it on a Saturday morning.